Welcome to Hoop-De-Doodle, everybody, in our Grom Chopper build series. So for our custom chopper, we have made a gas tank from scratch on our own. It's lovely, isn't it? Our next steps on this, though, we have to seal the inside of the tank. I would recommend painting it after you seal the inside of the tank. That's not what I did, because I'm afraid now that I painted it, I'm gonna ruin the paint and I'm gonna have to redo the paint. Now, basic steps on sealing a tank, there's 3 steps. I've done this twice, so I'm a complete expert on this. Actually, I've done it once. This will be my second time. But this will be the second product I've used on this, and they all include this 3-step process where they clean and degrease the tank, and then they etch the tank, and then you put the actual sealer in there after all of that. I've used what's called a cream brand before. That worked great. This time we're gonna use a POR 15, which is also supposed to be very good. First, there's cleaner degreaser. Then there's this metal prep. That's sort of the etching sort of stuff. And then finally, you have the actual sealer that goes in there. So let's get to it. All right, so all these solutions and whatnot that we're gonna be using involve rolling them around inside the tank. Pour the liquid in, roll it around, and you'll see that we have a hole here and a hole back here, so we need to seal those holes up so that we can roll that liquid around. My first steps here are going to be sealing the bottom. So I have this little O-ring here that I use to pressure test the tank, but you'll see there's a big hole in the middle of that. We need something that it doesn't have a big hole, so I've got this stuff. This is just rubber that I found at the local hardware store in the plumbing section. So I need to cut this out in the same dimension as this little ring here so that we can then use it around here and seal this thing up. Alright, so that should fit in there nicely. So yeah, that's what I'm doing with that. You see that sits right down inside here like that. For an extra spacer, I'm gonna put that on top of there, and then we've got this guy that I made that goes on top of there as well, and that will sandwich everything down and seal off the tank. Nuts on there, we'll seal this thing off. Now we're on to part 1, which is cleaner degreaser. And we do 1 part of cleaner degreaser with 1 part of hot water. And I've also got this funnel, hot water into the tank. And I had that up to about this line here on this jar. I'm gonna put the same amount of degreaser in. All right, so far water is staying in the tank. All right, it's the same amount of degreaser. This is probably overkill. More than recommended. Now we'll take our tank, take that off of there, and put my cap on here and seal this tank off. And then we're going to rotate this thing around so that this degreaser hits all the sides of the tank. And I say this might be too much because in the instructions it basically says to repeat this process until the water from the tank comes out clean. I just used most of the stuff in this bottle, so I have limited ability to repeat this process. Slide this thing, rotate it around so everything gets to all the surfaces in here. And I have a brand new tank, so there really shouldn't be like much coming out of this thing. I can see I still have holes in this tank. And the instructions say to give it 2 hours per side. So like let it sit like this for 2 hours and then rotate it and let it sit another side like so for another 2 hours. So this could take a while. All right, it's been several hours now. We have rotated this thing onto all sides, given it a nice shake and shimmy. And now I'm gonna go ahead and take this stuff and pour it out. And then if necessary, we'll put more in and shake and shimmy some more. If you have an older tank, a used tank that you're doing this with, especially one that's a higher degree of rust in it, you're probably gonna be here for a while, and I would highly recommend buying as large a container of this as you can. I'm gonna go pour it out, we'll be back. All right, I have rinsed this thing out several times. I dumped it out, and the water that came out of it was as clear as the water that went into it, so I'm good there. I'm not gonna do any more. If it comes out dark though, you need to redo it until it comes out clear. Another thing to note is that this is an aluminum cap on here, and you can see that we discolored the stuff that came in contact with the degreaser. So next I've got, we need to dry this out. So I'm gonna get a heat gun. All right, so the heat gun was starting to melt the paint off of it, so that wasn't fun. So we switched to the fan, and now it's dry. Now it's time for this metal prep stuff. So basically I gotta seal the tank back up, and then we're gonna pour this stuff in just the same way we did the other stuff, basically, except I'm gonna pour this whole thing in there, And then we're gonna rotate this thing around every half an hour. Fill this back up. All right, now, so. All right, so at this point we can dump this stuff out. We've done all 6 sides on the tank. We can dump it back into our container here and reuse it on a different tank in the future. We need to rinse this out several times, get all of that metal prep out of here, and then dry this thing out completely with like a heat gun, blow dryer. All right, now I'm gonna go rinse it out. All right, so I've rinsed it out here, and interestingly, one thing I noticed was that our cap here is back to being a nice aluminum color. And now this guy here, this has been fully rinsed. Now I need to dry it off. Take our cap back off the bottom and blow some air through here and dry it out. Then we'll seal it. All right, now we want to add in our sealer. Finally, put the tank sealer in there. So this stuff, we need to seal up the tank again, put my little rubber grommet and everything back on the bottom, seal that up, pour this stuff in, and then swish it all around inside there. Pour the rest back out. Let it drain out for like 30 minutes. That's it. 96 hours later, it will be fully cured and good to go. All right, it says we want to stir this stuff well, so I'm gonna give it a good shake. Opening the can. It's like silver paint in there. It's crazy looking. Stir it. Now it goes in. All right, now we swish it around in there. Make sure it coats all the surfaces. I'm expecting to see it seep out here and there somewhere where there's a hole. I'm gonna put my cap back on here. And this is what you're supposed to do. Slowly roll this thing around. Slowly. All right, so I've got a couple leaks here. You can see there's a big one there around the fuel cap, wherever I had some come out of there. And then there's some little tiny one right there. All right, so now I've got it as good as I can get it. I've rotated it a ton. Now it's time to drain this stuff out. So I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew my little cap here. And then I have a tap that fits this. So my plan is to later on come through and tap that thing. It smells okay, but there's definitely a fume to it. Let's get my little can set up here underneath. Put this guy in that. Tip this upside down. It says to let it drain for at least 30 minutes. I'm gonna clamp it up here. Yeah, and then we're gonna take that top off of there and let it dry out. Mainly to let it dry out. That's why I'm taking this top off, get air flowing through there. And this thing has to sit for days, so this will let it dry out some more. I really do recommend these rubber things. I'll put a link in the description for that so you can find at least what this is and go get it yourself. And you're not supposed to reuse this stuff, so I'm just let it sit like this. Only thing else I have to do is tap that thread probably because it's gonna have stuff crusted on the threads and we don't want that. So I'll do that, and I'm also gonna clean up my fuel cap here, get that stuff off of there. But that is the general process of sealing the tank. Oh, and by the way, acetone worked great. Clean that stuff right up. Through the magic of television, the bike is finished. I got the tank on there. It's been painted. We got lettering on the tank, all that stuff. And now I'm finally ready to put some gas in it and try and start this bike. A little gas cap off here. A, I hope there's no leaks, and then B, I hope this starts right up. Check, make sure nothing's leaking out of here. So far so good. Looks good here.